Hey guys, Tiago here. That's a 3060 Ti with 8 gigabytes of VRAM. How is it in 2023? The 4060 Ti is going to be coming out in shortly. We don't know the exact date, but it should be announced maybe at the end of the month. That has 8 gigabytes of VRAM. The best way to show you guys is not graphs on the screen, but I want to show you actual games with the frame rates. Let's see how it performs. This is an old Falcon Northwest Mach 5. Look at that. Two CD drives, double DVD drive. That shows you how old this thing is. It's like 8 years old. But don't worry, inside is upgraded. I upgraded it and built it myself. That's a 7800X3D CPU. So that's definitely the latest stuff. And of course, it's going to be a 3060 Ti, 8 gigabytes. Let's go on Cyberpunk, a game that is very demanding, actually fun to play. I actually beat the game. So that's a 3060 Ti, 8 gigabyte at 1440p. Let's put Ray Tracing Ultra. This is going to be DLSS 2. Obviously, we don't have DLSS 3 with frame generation. That's only for the RTX 4000 GPUs. And as you can see, 1440p. So here we go. As you can see, we're getting around 51 frames per second. Look at that VRAM allocation up there. That's a lot higher, almost the 8 gigabytes of this GPU, and it's using almost 7. So we're doing a lot higher VRAM when using ray tracing as opposed to only Ultra, but we're still getting around 50, a little under 50 FPS. 3060 Ti. The game in person actually looks really good. You can tell it's being upscaled. It's not as sharp as native, but DLSS overall is doing a pretty good job, and it's definitely keeping the frame rate smooth. Look at that frame time graph. That's not too bad. And look at the light. Look at the reflections. That's really, really nice. This isn't path tracing overdrive by any means, but still a really good experience on a 3060 Ti, which you can get for a lot cheaper than any new GPU right now. So look at that, under 60 FPS, but smooth FPS. That's the biggest difference. And the game looks good. It looks really good in person. And look at that, GPU, CPU staying cool. Almost 5 gigahertz on the CPU. Overall, definitely looks really good. Look at that average, about 50 FPS average. GPU, 3060 Ti, as you can see. Processor, 7800X3D, like I said. And look at that QHD, 1440p. Ray tracing on Ultra. And we do have DLSS on. It's enabled. I guess it was on auto, not balanced, is what it defaulted to. But that's still pretty good. DLSS auto. And about 50 FPS Ray Tracing Ultra. That's not too bad at all. And then how about a game such as Hitman 3? Here we're going to do again 1440p. We're going to have DLSS on balanced, and we're going to have ray tracing on, and everything is going to be on Ultra, as you can see. Let's run it. Let's see in person if it looks good and what the results are for a game that's actually pretty demanding with ray tracing. Remember, that's going to be a 3060 Ti, and we have the 7800X3D dual DVD drives. Look how cool that is. I bet you haven't seen that in a while. Wow, look at that, 117 FPS. Looks pretty good so far. Ooh, just dropped to like 64. We got some lighting. This part's really demanding when you play the game for those that have played it. Look at that VRAM allocation, staying under 8 gigabytes of VRAM up there. But look at the frame time. It's mostly smooth. You do get a few of these spikes. That's a frame rate drop. But that's when the scene changes. So it's nothing to do with the game. Look at that. The game itself, let me pull back a little bit. Looks pretty smooth, and we're getting right around, 60 FPS. It varies a decent amount. But the frame time, look at that, very smooth in general. And we're staying under the VRAM allocation. This game has a lot of really nice lighting effects. Obviously, it doesn't look as sharp as the native, but it looks really good. For a 3060 Ti at 1440p, that's pretty impressive. You can run this easily, very smooth frame rates. I bet you the average will be, decent, very playable. Better than a console, that's for sure. 3060 Ti is not that expensive now. Look at that. It looks really nice. And remember, if you turn ray tracing off, you're going to get so much higher performance too. You'll definitely get probably over 100 FPS. Look at that. That looks really good, actually. Very nice lighting effects. Frame rate is staying pretty stable. Look at that frame time. It only spikes during scene changes. That's pretty much the only time we see that little line go up. Otherwise, very smooth. Look at that. Overall, 65 FPS. That's not bad at all. Very, very good results. If I had a 3060 Ti at 1440p, you could definitely play it. Very playable indeed. So let's try to push the boundary a little bit. This is going to be the famous or infamous Hogwarts, a very fun game. This is at 4K now. This is a 4K panel as well. I didn't put it at 1440p. This is going to be pretty much everything set to ultra. Ray tracing is going to be on low, however, because, you know, I don't want to have this thing really not be that playable. Ray tracing ultra will make it not as playable. Look at that. Just standing around, and it looks really good, by the way. DLSS on balanced. I'm going to show you guys the settings in a second. But look at that. Very smooth frame time. And you're getting a little under 60 frames per second. I have my little keyboard here. I'm holding the camera, so I'm going to move around. And you see it even goes up to 70. So it depends where you are. Obviously, if you're like in Hogsmeade, it's going to suffer a little bit more. You know, I don't want to be too demanding here because this is, after all, a 3060 Ti, 8 gigabytes. You can see it's definitely using some VRAM, but not nearly as much. It's still staying under. So let's go into the settings. See, I completed the game 100% as well. Cool, right? Or not cool, depending if you don't like the game. But look at that. 4K. And then obviously DLSS balanced, make it, you know, the rendering resolution is going to be around 58%. And let's look at the settings that I have here. Look at that. Everything on ultra. Ray tracing on, and then ray tracing, like I said, I put on low because ray tracing on high, you know, you're not going to get around 60 frames per second. You can do it, but it's not going to be as playable. So going back to the game, it looks really, really good, to be honest. You can definitely play this. I mean, even if we go to Hogsmeade, which is going to be very demanding. Let's see what happens here. I'm assuming here we're going to get a little bit more up and downs on the frame time, maybe less frame rate, just because there's more going on. It's more CPU intensive. That is a 7800X3D in there. So we're a little bit down on the FPS. I mean, even a 4090 can have some weird results here, so it's not any indication necessarily of the GPU. And if we walk around, it drops a little bit, around 40 FPS. You can obviously turn off ray tracing, and you may go over 60 FPS again, or at least close to it. Maybe turn the textures down if you really want to. But this is going to be one of the hardest parts of the game, the most demanding. It's still like fairly playable. It's not too jarring. Look at the frame time. It's not as smooth as before, but it's not going crazy. So yeah, interesting results. 3060 Ti, I guess, is still decent in 2023. So if you can do this at 4K, and remember, go down to 1440p, you're going to get much more playable results. This is 4K. That's actually kind of impressive for a GPU that's 8 gigabytes.